anyway, Mr. Borden's partial autopsy was done in this room, and Mrs. Borden, the stepmother, was done in the sitting room. Then they brought the bodies back in here, covered them with sheets, and the bodies had to stay here from Thursday to Saturday, the day of the funeral. And they didn't embalm, they didn't embalm in those days. They only did a partial autopsy to find out by the stomach contents about how long they were dead. And then when the bodies were brought to the cemetery, the bodies were put in a mausoleum, and they cut the victims' heads off, boiled off the flesh, and send the head to back to this Dr. Woods from Boston. The morning of the murder, what happened was Emma, the oldest daughter, she went to Fairhaven. She went and stayed with friends in Fairhaven. I say she got out of town. She knew what was going to happen. So who was in the house? It was Lizzie, Emma. Emma was gone. Lizzie, Abby, the stepmother, and Bridget, the maid. The morning of the murder, Mr. Borden came down for breakfast. It was Mr. Borden and Uncle John Moss, who was a brother-in-law of Mr. Borden from his first wife, that was Lizzie and Emma's uncle. And he would come here quite often to see his nieces, and he had business dealings with Mr. Borden. Mr. Borden had 2 farms in Swansea, and Mr. John Moss had business dealings with Mr. Borden. So I thought it was strange that he would sit there, and the stepmother sits at the head of the table, but they told me that's the way it was. So Mrs. Borden called the maid in to serve them breakfast, and the breakfast consisted of 3-day-old mutton stew, Johnny cakes, bananas, cookies, and coffee. Mutton is an old sheep, and they had that 3 days in a row. Did you see that Elizabeth Montgomery movie? Anybody see that? Yeah. With the mutton, and you see the flies. That's just Hollywood. I don't think it was that bad. But yes, that's what they had, mutton, Johnny cakes, bananas, and cookies. Now, Johnny cakes, you won't get Johnny cakes, you won't get mutton tomorrow. You get Johnny cakes are like little silver dollar pancakes, but they're gritty because they're made with cornmeal. So you put a little butter and syrup on it and try it. You don't have to eat it. You're going to get, they'll make you scrambled eggs, home fries, and I don't know what kind of a meat, either chorizo or ham or whatever meat that goes with it. And fruit, you have fruit. And some kind of homemade bread, coffee, tea, hot chocolate. So you have a real good breakfast. A lot of people do like the Johnny cake.
That's Lizzie.
So anyway, everybody in this house was sick. They were always sick in this house. So Mrs. Borden went across the street to see Dr. Bowen, and she said, Dr. Bowen, we're all in sick in this house. She said, I think somebody's poisoning our milk. And he said to her, no, Abby, says, it isn't the milk because you people like to eat bad meat. They did too, They had an ice box in the kitchen. And I don't know, maybe the maid left the food on the counter all night, or maybe, maybe the ice had melted when she put it in there. They were always sick. And so he gave her something for upset stomach. And then when she came down the morning of the murder, she had already felt a little bit better. And she looked at her husband and she said, oh, you were heated this morning. Why don't you go across the street and see Dr. Bowen? And he stood up, and there's Uncle John sitting right next to him. He's pointing. He says, I'm not going over there. I'm not paying any Dr. this building, don't you dare send him over here to do, I'll throw him right out of the house. I mean, how much can the doctor charge? He said, maybe 75 cents in those days, you know. He wasn't about to pay it, well, he didn't know, he was gonna get a bill for her. And of course, Mrs. Gordon didn't wanna start an argument in front of Uncle John Moss, so she said, well, all right, if you feel like that, so that's what happened in this one. Anybody have questions on this one at all? That's a cemetery, if you go in the main gate, you go to Overson Street, and you take right up top of the main gate, to your left, and you see the hours.
Oh yeah, that's the murder couch.
Oh, ew.
You're sitting on the murder couch.
One thing I heard was that there was a.
What about germs?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And, prussic acid.
His head was right there.
You see that movie, Austin Emily, with Jerry, yeah. They wanna get rid of husband or someone, you give a little Austin a little time, to get sick, and he gets sicker. Before you know it, they die, and everybody would say, oh, that man's, he's been sick a long time. I bet if they dug up some of those graves, they'd find a lot more poison, arsenic. They didn't know how to, analyze things like that today. You
No,
know,
but that
I
was,
mean, in
that
those
was one of the
days.
first poisons they did learn to do in the 1800s.
Yeah, and the agent, but that's what, a lot of people would get killed off like that.
Right.
And they didn't know how to analyze that.
It was a common pesticide.
Yep. And then, of course, there was talk about Lizzie trying to buy, like, the day before the murder, was trying to buy prussic acid, and she said she needed to clean a sealskin cape, and the pharmacist couldn't sell it to her because you needed a prescription, and so, of course, she didn't have one. But there was a policeman's wife who resembled Lizzie. She was going around trying to buy poison too, you know, so that's another story. And so, who knows? But let's face it, these people were not poisoned, they were hatcheted to death.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I'll tell you what I think. Well, I can tell you, doing the seance and what my husband and I always thought, that Lizzie was involved in actually do it. Uncle John hired somebody to come here and hang these people. And some of the reasons were, when he asked, like, was money the main reason for the murders? And Mrs. Gordon says money was not the main reason. And that's the questions in this room before we go into the sitting room?
Break in at the Lizzie house, yeah, who would try it? All the axes around here.
Okay. The stance right here.